In this video, I'll show you my version of pasta frolla, which is a classic of Argentinian baking. It's a tart made with short crust pastry and filled with quince paste. The inspiration for this tart is in a classic of Italian baking called crostata. First of all, the original Argentinian tart is made with quince paste. However, I prefer to make it with guava paste. In the market, you can find both quince and guava paste in a variety of packs, sizes and formats, and any will work. That being said, let's begin by heating up the oven, as this tart is very quick to make. With the oven heating up, we are going to cut the guava paste into pieces so that we can melt it more easily. This step is important if you're using a firmer guava, but if you're using a smoother one, it's not necessary to cut it. After cutting the guava paste, I put the pieces in a frying pan, add some water, and keep it on medium-low heat until it has melted. You can also do this in the microwave if you prefer. When the guava paste has melted, I add a little salt.
Are you gonna put salt in the jam? I've never heard of that.
The salt serves to enhance the flavors. If you make a dessert and don't add salt to it, it tends to be cloying and bland. Now the filling needs to cool down to room temperature. And while that's happening, I'm going to make the dough by putting salt and baking powder in the bottom of a large bowl, followed by powdered or icing sugar, and then the flour. And once that's done, I'm going to sift these ingredients, which is something I don't usually do with flour, but the powdered sugar usually has lumps in it. Told you so. With the dry ingredients sifted, I will weigh the unsalted butter, and with the butter weighed, I'll melt it. Typically, the dough for this tart is made with butter at room temperature, which is creamed with the sugar unto which the egg is added and beaten for about 10 minutes. But my method is more practical, faster, more efficient, and the end result is identical. After lightly mixing the dry ingredients, I add the melted butter as well as the egg and the yolk. In total, it should reach 75 grams. If after adding the yolk you don't reach that weight, you can add a little of the egg white, and then a little vanilla and the zest of a lemon. Now just mix with a spoon until the ingredients are partially combined, and then start squeezing the dough by hand until almost all the dry ingredients are gone. Then place the dough on your surface without adding any flour on it. The kneading technique for this type of dough is what the French called fraiser. It consists of dragging the dough with the palm of your hand over the surface, then collecting and repeating the process 2 or 3 times. This procedure helps to hydrate the flour evenly. With the dough ready, I'll start dealing with the decoration of the tart first, and soon you'll understand why. On a sheet of cling film, I place about 1/3 of the dough, cover with another sheet of cling film, and roll the dough, forming a rectangle of 12 by 27 centimeters. You can just take the dough and put it where it's missing. With a ruler, I make a horizontal mark for the 12 centimeter and a vertical mark for the 27. And then I use the ruler itself in a guillotine movement to cut the excesses, forming my rectangle.
I'm not gonna do that. That's way too complicated. Haven't finished watching it, I'm already tired.
Later on in the video, I show a much simpler way of doing it. The excess dough returns to the primordial dough ball. Now I slide the rectangle over a cutting board and it goes into the freezer. While the rectangle is in the freezer, I cover the pie plate with the dough. In my case, it's a non-stick plate, and aside from that, the dough has so much butter in it that's impossible to stick. But if you're using another type of plate, or if you want to grease it with something, you can too. It's important, as far as possible, that the dough is as even as possible inside the mold, and that there are no thicker or thinner areas, more for aesthetic reasons than anything else. With the lined plate, in goes the melted guava paste, which is at room temperature by now. Now the tart is set aside while I work on the decoration. First, I remove the layer of plastic because it doesn't taste very good after baking. Then I place the ruler, which is perfectly clean, on top and make 12 1-centimeter markings. The same procedure is repeated at the bottom of the rectangle. Then I use these 2 markings as a guide to cut out the 12 strips for decoration. You can use a pizza cutter, the ruler itself, or even a knife, but in this case you only need to press down. And then I cover it with plastic and put it in the freezer for 5 minutes. In the meantime, I'm going to use this whiteboard to explain how I'll do the decoration. In this poorly drawn circle, I'm going to make 6 poorly drawn horizontal lines. Pay attention to that empty area up there, and also lines 4, 5, and 6. Each of them goes from the bottom towards that empty area above diagonally. Now pay attention to the empty area below, and also lines 1, 2, and 3. Each of them runs diagonally from the top towards that empty area below. With the dough out of the freezer and firmer, I place 6 strips parallel to each other and spaced as evenly as possible over the pie. So I remove the excesses and brush with beaten egg, because if I wait to brush everything later, it gets complicated. If you're wondering why I'm using a common hardware brush instead of a silicone one, I explained it in my hot cross buns video, link for which is in the description. That being done, I proceed with the decoration as I explained on the whiteboard. Traditionally, and unlike American apple pies, this tart is decorated with a diagonal grid that's not weaved. Later in the video, when I show the simpler way, I also give another decoration idea different from this one. After removing the excess, I lowered the edges of the tart and also use the rest of the dough around the edges. That way, there is no excess dough to store and everything is used. And then I brush the top strips with beaten egg. Seriously, even a finger is more useful than those horrible silicone brushes. Finally, the tart goes into the oven. While it bakes, I'll make a syrup with sugar and water. Without stirring, it cooks over low heat until all the sugar dissolves. This syrup is used to give the tart a shine after baking and is often used in bakeries to make the product more attractive, but it's completely optional. When ready, transfer it to a container and let it cool down. At room temperature, it has this consistency. If you're using a pie plate like this, once it's baked, you can remove the edge of it, and then it's time to brush with the syrup. By the way, this is another brush. After a few hours, and with the tart already cold, I remove the base of the mold and transfer the tart to a board, and then I put it in the oven to cut the next day. This is another optional step, but both the structure and flavor improved the next day. I left the oven light on just because I was filming, but it stayed off afterwards. To make the decoration simpler, after lining the tart plate with 2/3 of the dough and the filling, take a piece of the dough and make a rope with it, place it on a clean ruler or a large knife, transfer it to the pie, remove the excess and repeat until finished. Everything is much faster that way. To make a checkered grid, start at both extremities, then fill in the blank with 4 remaining strips, and here she is after baking. But now, back to the original tart. I'm going to brush it again with the syrup I made to make it even more attractive, and after making a very strong coffee, it's time to eat.
Stingy with the filling, huh? Must be all that inflation, I guess.
Guava paste is pretty much a sliceable jam, so the amount I ask for in the recipe is enough for my taste, but you can add as much as you want. In the description of this video you will find the recipe, as well as step-by-step instructions, some tips, and also the link to my hot cross buns video. But anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. We'll see each other in the next video. Bye.